Hunting can be stressful and frustrating. Trying to hit survivors, hitting them at pallets but then missing and then getting stunned by a pallet, getting looped around areas for an eternity, trying to chase them and never managing to get anywhere near them, knowing that survivors are near but you don't know where because they're hiding somewhere. This can all be very, very frustrating. Every single hunter has a different mechanic and a different playstyle, so there isn't exactly one strategy that I can give you or anyone can give you to help you improve as a hunter and learn how to be the best at every hunter. But one thing we can do is we can analyze our own gameplay and compare it to those who are professionals or higher tiers than us. Even if it's a hunter that we don't want to learn, we can still learn something from a certain playstyle that a player may have. Maybe some tips are very specific to a hunter, maybe something you see in the gameplay will help you think differently and can reconsider how you play the game in general. I have 3 different matches to analyze, and I will show you the important parts from each match. The first gameplay that we're going to analyze is Seul's. Seul has been playing Axeboy for a decent amount of time now, and I would say he's a very good Axeboy player. One decision that he makes from the very beginning is to go towards Factory. Now, I wouldn't really recommend this in general as a hunter, because Factory is one of the strongest points for survivors to kite in. One thing that he did notice is that the person who was decoding in Factory was Mechanic. And you really want to focus on getting that mechanic down quickly, because the decoders are what makes the match go faster. So you want to slow down the pace. One thing that you will see in this match is that Seul has really good accuracy with his fireballs for Axeboy. He seems to be paying attention to where they are at all points, and he also knows exactly when to attract them to be able to hit the person. It is definitely worth practicing these abilities and practicing your accuracy with these abilities. For example, you might want to practice Violinist's Sonata, placing those notes. Maybe Sculptor's statues, Feaster's tentacles, and many more things that you can practice. By practicing the accuracy of your abilities, you'll actually shorten the kiting time for the survivor that you're chasing, meaning that you have more time to hunt other players in the match. Peepers seems to also be a very popular choice for Axeboy. This is partly, I think, because it helps you to see people through walls and then use the fireballs to hit them. But in general, Peepers is quite a popular ability for different hunters because it helps you to monitor different areas. Different traits are better and worse for different hunters. Blink, for example, can help you get lots of presents very quickly at the beginning of a match by teleporting through the wall and hitting a survivor. Teleport gives you more map control, and Excitement is great if you have a team full of stunners. As soon as this character is rescued, you'll notice that Seul focuses on the person who was chaired. This is the way to guarantee an elimination in the match. If he had chased the person who had rescued, he's making his later game much more difficult because he's still dealing with 4 players instead of 3 players. Later in the match, he manages to knock somebody down after they were just rescued, and the rescuer is nearby. Instead of picking up that survivor and taking that survivor to a chair, instead he goes and focuses the rescuer, who is also on half health right now. He pressures them and actually manages to knock them down. This makes it almost a guaranteed win, since there's only one survivor that now has to rescue 2 chairs, and also decode a ton of ciphers. He then returns to the survivor that he knocked down first, because that survivor will be closer to healing themselves up. He chairs that person and then goes after the second person he knocked down. Before he goes and picks that person up, he puts the peeper down to make sure that he can monitor the area where he just chaired someone while he's picking up the other person. This means that he can quickly go back if he notices that somebody is trying to rescue the other person. He also places a tree to create more fireballs if there is some type of rescue that happens. His tree placement was also very strategic, because when that survivor came and rescued and tried to rescue the other person, they actually got slowed down, because Axeboy has a slowdown ability when they leave the area of the tree when he's got full presence. So he managed to knock the survivor down before they even got to the second rescue. The next gameplay that we have is from Eileen. She is one of the top players for Axeboy and has been for quite a while now. One thing that we see instantly in this match is that Eileen knows exactly where she wants to go. She knows the spawn points. If you don't know the spawn points, this can make it very difficult for you as a hunter, because you can waste a lot of time at the beginning of the match. It's not necessary to learn the spawn points exactly, but it's a very good idea to decide a path. So next time, instead of memorizing everybody's positions, you can memorize a path that you need to go to see a certain survivor quickly. You also see that she predicts where she thinks the survivor is going to be, and she uses the fireball to try and hit them behind a wall. She did miss, but she did also force the survivor to move out of the area. That means that she's free to go through those pallets if necessary. She hits the survivor whilst they're dropping the pallet, meaning that she never gets stunned in the first place. We also see that Eileen uses the fireball in very key moments. In most cases, she uses the fireball when the survivor is stuck in some type of animation. For example, vaulting a pallet. This means that the survivor is stuck and cannot move in any direction while they're doing this animation, so it's a guaranteed hit for Eileen. Again, we see that it's a really great idea to pressure the decoders of the team. She gets down Mechanic very quickly, and she also pressures Prisoner off of his cipher. This slows down the progress of the decoding considerably, making it much easier for Eileen to win the match because she has a lot more time. Eileen tells me that the tree placement is key to winning. Learning when to use your abilities is very important as a hunter. A great example of this would be Hellember's Puppet and Ember that you can use to stop a rescue by double hitting, or using Anne's Cats to stun somebody who's just been rescued instantly and knock them back down again. Eileen's recommendation for Axeboy's tree placement is to place them in strong kiting areas, or where you know the survivor's going to have to transition. Also, a very interesting tip that she gives me is that if you place a tree on a second floor of a building and a survivor jumps down somehow, this actually affects them as they get slowed when you have full presence. We see one of the strongest things that Eileen does during the match. In tight kiting areas, she pressures the survivor into making a decision. How does she do this? She uses the fireball to make them decide if they're going to go left or go right. This makes it very easy for Eileen to then go and hit the survivor because the survivor is trying to avoid getting hit by the fireball and is not focusing on the hunter. One thing that newer players and even veteran players discuss if it's ethical or not to do is camping. Camping is necessary for certain types of hunters, but there are 3 different strategies if you have someone chaired. The first one is camping. This is very good at securing a kill, but it also has a problem. The rest of the team is decoding while you're camping, meaning that you could lose the match because everybody's finished the ciphers before you've even eliminated one survivor. The other option is that you go and leave the chair and go and find somebody else. So this is a good idea because it helps you pressure ciphers and maybe slow down the progress, but it also is a problem because you're not guaranteeing any elimination, and this means you're still dealing with 4 survivors. The last option is somewhere between the two, and this is the one that I would generally recommend for most hunters. And this is to make sure that you place the survivor you've got ballooned in a chair that is near a cipher that is being worked on. This puts more pressure on the cipher that was being decoded, meaning that they don't want to decode, and this slows down the game, and it also means that they are forced to rescue earlier, meaning that they have less time to decode. But this also is very difficult to monitor, so that's the downside. Here we see a great example of Eileen's tree placement. She knew that the survivors after rescuing would have to transition out of the area, so by placing the tree, she knew that they would get slowed down, and she used this to her advantage. The last match we have to analyze is my own match. Before this match, I had only played Axeboy a handful of times, so this is a really great way to analyze and see what I was doing wrong and what I was doing better, and hopefully this can help you to improve as a hunter too. One mistake that I made very early on is I didn't use the fireballs correctly. I could have used the fireballs to hit the priestess while she was vaulting, but I just had such inexperience with using the fireballs that I didn't know how to use it correctly. Instead, I used the fireball to catch up with the survivor. That was never really a good idea in the first place. It's better to try and hit the survivor with them. I intuitively knew to try and snipe a survivor from behind a wall, but I didn't know where that survivor was. This is a great reason to take peepers because you can actually see people through the wall, meaning that it's easier to snipe people from behind a wall. During this match, I waste a lot of fireballs only using the speed boosts. As we saw with the other players, they used the fireballs when the survivors were stuck in animations or when they were forced into a corner or something like this. I'm too busy trying to focus on where the survivors are and predicting to see if I can hit them behind a wall. I also am doing quite well at pressuring ciphers, but I am not putting the trees in the right places, especially when kiting, because this means I would have more fireballs to work with. Eileen also tells me that the trees can run out of fireballs, so if this happens, it might be a good idea to plant another tree so that you have more fireballs to work with. The trees don't permanently run out of fireballs, they just have a cooldown of 30 seconds. I place a tree down right after chairing someone, hoping that I'll be able to use a fireball to snipe somebody when they rescue. One thing that I didn't realize was that there were a lot of survivors in the area, not just one. I also accidentally teleported to the chair instead of the exit gate, so oops. Here I will show all the persona webs from each person who played today. Maybe you can use these or take some inspiration from these builds. Analyzing your gameplay and contrasting it with other better players than you is a very good way to improve as a hunter and as a survivor. We see that Eileen's placement is very important and very calculated. Seul uses them very well in defending a chair, but he doesn't place them in very good places when he's trying to stop kiting. I don't place the trees in great transitioning areas or tight kiting areas. Are there any other things that you noticed from this gameplay that I missed? Maybe some secret tips that I didn't realize? Or maybe you know some other tips for improving how to be a better player as Axeboy or as a hunter in general? If you do, then leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like below and subscribe if you'd like to see some videos on Identity 5, some tips, some tricks, maybe some information that you don't know about the game itself. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.